chapter 9, verse 10. Then someone else will read 2 Thessalonians 3, 8 to 10. So let's start with Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10. What lesson do we need to learn about work? Who is helping us? Ecclesiastes 9, verse 10. Yes. I think he wants to read.
Okay. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your mighty, for there is no work or divine or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going.
Finds to do. Do it how? Class, do it how? With all your might. Because there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave where you are going. Nobody will be a specialist in accounting in the grave. Abiosiro, nobody will be a barrister or a legal luminary in the grave. As soon as we all die, whatever knowledge you have acquired in this world is gone. So now that we are alive, is the best time for us to be the best that we can be. There are, in every profession in this world, there are people who are high earners and there are people who are low earners. Take, for instance, if you take the banking industry, there are people who earn just above minimum wage, 30-something thousand, 40-something thousand. And there are people who earn millions. They are utmost power. Because after we die, there is nothing else to be done. That is the lesson for us. Then now let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. I want someone to read that part for us. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. What lesson do we need to learn about work in this text? Let someone read for us now. We have a lot of young people here. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. I want someone to read. Okay.
Nor did we eat anyone's bread free of charge, but worked with labor and toil night and day, that we might not be a burden to any one of you, not because we do not have authority, but to make ourselves an example of how you should follow us. For even when we were with you, we commanded you this: if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat.
Amen. If any man would not work, neither shall he what? Eat. That answers the question of entitlement that we have today. Send me urgent 2K. Borrow me urgent 2K. Send me 5,000 naira. My grandmother swallowed spoon. My transformer got blown. Last man cut my neighbor. My landlord fell down and broke his leg. People would devise different stories just to have access to someone else's wealth. And I've seen instances where people fight people for not helping them. I have a brother, he's in London. Imagine, I'm suffering, I can't pay my rent, and I have a brother that is in London. Do you know what he's doing? He might jolly well be washing toilets or be a security guard. You don't know. But you just assume that since he's in a better country, then he should be the one carrying your burdens. And we have instances of people who all of a sudden just realize that someone else that is close to them makes it, they stop striving in life. We see them around. Musicians like Davido. You see a retinue of friends all around in their house, in their car, on their everywhere, taking from their food. This is somebody who also claims to be a musician, and they have not released a song in 5 years. Everywhere you see Davido, you see them, right? Some of us, maybe our uncle gets appointment to become MD of a parastatal or a minister under Buhari, and everything stops for us. We buy cars through him, we build houses through him. Nothing moves except he comes. If we want to do family meeting and he has not shown face, nobody can talk. The Bible says, he who would not walk should not eat. Let's have it as a principle of lesson. Let's make up our mind that we would not have what we cannot earn. In this age and time, you see young children that want to drive Mercedes. You finished secondary school, you've not studied at university, you've not acquired a profession, you've not specialized in anything, but you want to drive a big car. Something that you cannot earn, you want to have it. Those are important lessons. So, the blessings of work. Work has its own blessing. And lesson says, when we work, it helps our self-image. When I know that everything that I'm wearing, I bought it by myself, there is a way that I dress and walk in it that is different from if someone else is feeding me. It affects our self-image. We are able to live proudly. We are able to help other people. Our perspective to spending changes. If you work for 100,000, the way you will spend that 100,000 will be different from if someone else dashes you that money. That is the power of work. It affects our personality. So when God says we should work, there is a reason for it. And that is Monday lesson. Do we have any question or any contribution? Okay.
My question is the importance of work here. How can we, because I have some friends, we're into business, and some you see them, they will come 2 times in a week, and they say they are going for a church program, and they will stay there 3 days in the church. How can you convince people like that? How can you convince them that what they are doing is wrong?
Okay, so that's the question for the class. How do you convince people who spend most of their time in religious houses rather than work? How? How do you convince them? Okay, so I think the first question will be for us, what is the right perspective to hold as to the balance between religion and practice? Okay? I'm always happy each time I think about the Seventh-day Adventist Church because we do everything in a minimal or moderate way. I mean, when I was a student then in student fellowship in school, you see some fellowship early in the morning. There's a place where they call prayer ground in OAU. They've gone there to scabash. They will speak in tongue in the morning, in the evening. They will say they are doing student first. Why are you guys becoming more religious than God, right? There is a need for us to have our foundation in God, like the lesson says. It is important to have a relationship. But sometimes we've taken it, we'll rather leave our problems to miraculous means than actually find a path to success. And that is a problem. It's difficult convincing people like that because they will make it look like you don't have faith. But I would rather say the first thing is be an example yourself, right? I don't have any issues with prayers. I love to go to midweek, Friday. But I also know that God has created a path to walk. And the Bible says that faith without work is what? Is death. In the next lesson that we are going to see, the lesson tells us that all of us have an average of like 40 years to walk. Just think about it. From the time you stop being a child, when you leave your parents' house, for many people in Africa, is around 25. Till when the official retirement age is 65. Is about 40 years. Those 40 years, the encouragement is in your early years, say your 20s and 30s. Tuesday lesson, which says all of us have about 40 years to walk. For many people, this is a time when children are being brought up and educated in the home. The trend across the world today now is a lot of men don't want to get married until when they get to that point when they are earning well. So in their early years, when they are still struggling, when they are starting from the bottom, when they are still gaining experience, they don't want to settle down. They want to settle down when they've done those in their 20s and they are in their mid-30s, 35 for instance, and they are earning well. Then they start thinking of getting settled. And for many of these men, their excuse is that women don't also want to suffer with men. So they would rather get the money so that to avoid insult and marry. But for us in Africa, culturally, we don't wait until we have arrived before we get married. Because marriage for us is an institution where we build together. So this lesson is saying those early earning years when you don't make much, where you do a lot of work, but you don't have a lot of means, that is the time when families are most strained. Because the father is working, the mother is working. Until it gets to a point when the income of the father is able to carry everybody. And in our society today, what we've seen increasingly is that financial crisis at this period of the family is one of the major reasons why people divorce. But this lesson is saying that instead of looking at it from the downside, it is important that we look at it from the upside. How about making this period the time when we teach our children about financial management? How about making this time the time when we learn to manage our resources? We learn to live a lean lifestyle such that when the money begins to come, we are not used to luxury. We are saving more, investing in God's work, and helping other people. It is an opportunity if we really think about it. Lesson says families need to develop their values and their principles at this time. Families need to develop their principles at this time. And there are some Bible texts that we really need to read. So let's take 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23, and Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 to 24. Let's look at some principles that our families can adopt at the times when we are going through the financial beginnings. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. Who is reading? All right, sir, you can go ahead.
But if anyone does not provide for his own,
Okay.
and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and he worse than any unbeliever.
Thank you, sir. 1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for who? His own household. That's what some version said. He has denied the faith and is worse than what? An unbeliever. Some versions will say infidel. The lesson says that in many cases, the husband is the main breadwinner, even though both spouses work. I know we are beginning to see instances where many of us are traveling abroad and we are having experiences of other cultures. And because of the high cost of life, we've gradually gotten to the point where we become comfortable with splitting the bills. So you are going to shopping. We are going to spend £100. I drop £50. My wife drops 50. The lesson is saying as much as possible, when it comes to responsibility, let's be traditional, right? Let the man provide, take out his wallet, swipe his card, and get what the family would need. Yes, the wife can support, but it's important that we learn this principle so that we can live within the means of the husband. That is one. Two, whatever other forms of income we gain along the way, we can use it for other purposes. Of course, there are instances where unexpected circumstances happen. And let's say the demise of the head of a home and everything crumbles. This is not what the lesson is encouraging us to do. That is the reason why it is important that women also work. So that whatever happens to the man along the way, the woman is able to survive. I know when I just got married, I was having a conversation with my wife and we were just talking and I said, this is the reason why I believe women should work on their own businesses, even if they are not spending a bulk of their resources on the family. She said, what is the reason? I said, because what I have observed is my personal observation is that I was telling her, don't you see that oftentimes The husbands die like 20 years before the wife. And I feel the reason is the stress is much. Men do a lot, send all the children to school, and do all of that. I said, just imagine that the both people have combined their effort to be able to get things, invest in things, acquire things, such that if a man gets to a certain age, he does not have to work again. It will be easier for him to rest at his older age and not die an untimely death. And she said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So there was a day she came back from her work and she was stressed. And I was like, you don't really need to be stressing yourself like this. Because, it's work now. It's your personal business. You can open it and close it anytime. And she said, no, I will be working as if I'm working for somebody. I would be doing as much as I can do so that I can get as much as I can get. He said, because you yourself, you said it many years ago, that if you are the only one doing most of the work and I don't work, then you will die and leave me here. So let's do the work together so that even if I'm not spending my money as much, we can use it to buy things and keep. But I just gave that example jocularly, but it's important that we adopt that principle. The Bible says a man who does not provide for his family is worse than an infidel. We are getting to the point where some people take pride in it. They earn all their incomes. They don't carry their family along. They don't spend on their families. And the children and the wife sort themselves out. It is not biblical. It is not right. That is the first one. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 23 says, in all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. I am reading a book presently. The title is Money. And one of the chapters I read said that your own economy is different from the national economy. Nigeria could be very rich, our GDP could be growing, and you are getting poorer. Nigeria's GDP could be dropping. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, and those times when I still jump buses, and I will see people at the ring and the soldiers, I'll be like, oh my God, these people are supposed to be on their way to somewhere. It's even worse when they are making arguments about Chelsea and Man U. Is a lie. We bought Salah. We did not buy Salah. It was Ronaldo. No, it's Ronaldo. Messi is better. And they'll be dragging you, brother, come and listen. Is it true that, bro, okay, let's move on from idle chatter. Whatever the result of the elections today will be, some people will be richer 4 years from now than they are today. Some people will be poorer 4 years from now than they are today. The question is, what will be your own state? Forget about if the person is from APC or Labour Party. It's very important. Then the last one, Colossians 3:23-24 was the text we read. It said, whatever we do, let us do it heartily, as if we are doing it to God. So myself and Anderson were having conversation, and he was complaining